Welcome to the Flex Forward Podcast, where grit meets growth. With your host, Nic Espanet, bringing you stories of resilience, reinvention, and the real climb to success.
Hey everyone, I'm here with my good friend Darren Atwood. We have known each other for pretty much our whole lives, since early grade school. We've gone to school together. We kind of don't chat for a while, then we get back together and chat, and always good friends and good to catch up with Darren. Darren is been very, very successful as a physician out in West Texas, and I'll let you get him explain a little more detail of that. But if you can give just any business things you have going on, your doctor world, and just let us know what you're doing.
You bet. Thanks, Nick, for having me. This is really going to be fun. I was really excited about doing this. So I remember when you asked me to do this, you called me and asked if I wanted to be on this podcast. My first answer was yes. And I was kind of in a rush and I kind of had to hang up quickly. And my next thought in my head was, but what am I going to talk about? Because I know you're going to have people on here that are a lot better at real estate, a lot better at the stock market, those kinds of things. And I thought, well, what am I successful? Like, what is it that I'm actually good at? And I've been successful, but I think I had to actually put a moment of finding what it is I'm actually good at. And so I kind of knew automatically what I thought that might be. And so when you're doing something like, when you talk about these kind of podcasts, we're all talking about how do we make money? How are we successful? Those kinds of things. So we all want the next promotion. We all want, hey, if I could have enough, if I could get that money, I could buy that home. Or I could buy, if I had a boat, man, the summer would be amazing. So the question is always, why was it that we want to do that stuff? What is the thing that makes us say, well, I want the promotion? Because if you follow it down the line, you say, I want a promotion. What do you want the promotion? Well, I want some more independence. I'm tired of, I know the direction I need to go with this. I want that. And also I want to make more money. That's obviously what the promotion. But ultimately say, well, why do you want to make more money? Well, because if I make more money, I think we can go on that vacation.
Sure.
But what happens when you go on that vacation? Why do you want to go on vacation? Ultimately, it always comes down to one thing, because I think it's going to make me happy. And so ultimately, the promotion we think, not that it's true, we think that doing this or being successful at that's going to make us happy in the end. And the question is, does it? Does going on vacation really make you happy? I'm not sure it does. Now, for the moment, it's a lot of fun.
Sure.
But we all equate having fun with being happy, and those are not the same thing. Being happy is something much deeper. Having fun is shallow, and we all want to do that. So I think that's probably what I'm.
And I think of it too as joy. Happy. You're not guaranteed to have happiness, but you can have joy even in bad times.
Yes, absolutely. You can actually I've learned to take those bad times and say, okay, I've done this before. I've done harder things than this before. I know on the other side I'm going to be better. So how am I going to do this? There was a time in my life that I know exactly where I was sitting. I was in the clinic and someone was telling me about a young child that died. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I felt this, my own children, I felt this stress. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be an awful thing to happen. And then I was sitting there, and I kind of had this thought of, okay, so it happens, something awful, the worst case scenario. That is most adults, their worst case scenario is their child dying.
Sure.
And I thought,
for sure.
Yes. And I was like, okay, so what if it does happen? I only have control of one thing, how I do it. So I thought, how am I going to do this? So once I said, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to do it well. I don't even know what well means yet, but I'm going to do it well. And the burden came off of me. And so what I think that I have decided that I want, when it comes to success, I think I've redefined what success is for me. And it's not money like I used to think. And I did think that at one time. I truly thought money was probably the way to feel successful. And I think most of us, if you want to put a parameter on something, how much money you make is probably that parameter for when we see success. I don't think I see it that way anymore. I think that my success now is, what is my footprint on this
Oh, that's awesome.
world.
Yeah.
Yes. And the footprint is what I left behind me, not what I'm doing right now. And so
awesome.
I have a story I think I want to tell. And I think that this story is going to be really interesting for everyone that's listening to this, because this is a story, believe it or not, this story that happened to me whenever I was younger, which I was just a bystander. It's not really a story about me, but this story, when it happened to me when I was younger, actually affected probably everyone that's listening to this podcast right now. So whenever I was younger, I had a friend, lived in the neighborhood. We weren't best friends, rode the bus together, those kinds of things. And this friend was kind of a troubled kid. He was in trouble, hang out with the wrong people, those kinds of things. And it was really, he was still a friend. And I saw him growing through this. And I still remember scenes with this friend just through school and stuff. And I remember thinking he was in trouble. His freshman year, I actually had an algebra class with this kid. And this kid one time made a 6 on his report card. And he also made the teacher cry. And I remember thinking, this kid's trouble. Now, here's the mystery to this. What happened was, between his freshman and sophomore year, this kid came back and was a totally different kid. He dressed different. He acted different. He made good grades. The same teacher who he made cry, the next year, she gave him the algebra award. And no one knew why this happened. And we would ask him, and he would just kind of blow you off and said, just making different decisions. And so he went on to be top 10 in our class. He went to college. He went to be a professional school, and he was very successful in his life. And later years, I asked this friend, I was like, what is it that happened? And he kind of dodged it. He just dodged the whole subject. And I was like, I still was this mystery. I would tell people about this mystery of this friend that changed from freshman to sophomore year. And I had no idea what happened. And I was very, very interested in this story. And finally, I got him to tell me the story a couple of years after that. And he said pretty simply, he said, a middle school coach, he was in high school, so this middle school coach had nothing to do with him, came to him and said, you know what, you're hanging out with the wrong kids. You have a choice to make. You can either hang out with the kids you're going to, or you can still play football, hang out with better kids, and it might change your life. And he just made a choice. This kid just made a choice in this. And this choice ended up leading him to a life that's very different. And I think you could probably tell me the end of the story.
Yes. So yes, it was a great story. That was me. And
that was you.
Darren and I did live within a few blocks from each other growing up. And I was a knucklehead for many years. And I had that realization of, through a coach and a couple of teachers, are just, hey, your choices right now, you're going down this path, but it's not going to get good. And I recall having just thinking like, yeah, if I continue down this path, I'm going to be dead in a ditch. It was kind of my thought.
Yeah.
And just decided I was not going to go that way. And it was one of those things that once I applied myself and probably made an A on the first algebra test, I was like, what? How did this happen?
Yes.
I had a clear head. I paid attention in class and not being a troublemaker.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow.
The important part of this story, though, I love your side of this because I have never really heard your side very much. But the important part is you think of the footprint that Coach Nichols, the coach that talked to you that day, the footprint he left was he has passed away and gone now. But as he's gone, even today, your children are doing better. Your wife is doing better. You're doing better. You're doing a podcast, which would have never happened. And no one without Coach Nichols talking to you about that would be here today listening to this podcast. And that's the way it affects them, is there's actually a positive thing that has happened from this later on down the line.
Ripples. Yeah. Think of the ripples that go out from doing something good. And it could be as simple as a smile. Walking down the street at somebody that may be having a bad day and you just say hello and smile at them may be a great.
Absolutely. So I want to be Coach Nichols of this world. I want to have the ripples when I'm gone. I want to have positive ripples from my life. And I think that I really tried to do that. I have people come up to me and said, 10 years ago, you said something to me. And they said it really stuck with me and it actually affected my life. That is the best thing I ever hear. By far, the best thing that ever happens to me are those. I seem to put a lot of effort into these 17, 18, 19-year-old men, but mainly women who I don't want them getting trapped in the trap of being a young mother who has no options, who stays in bad relationships and all that. And I really try. And I've had many of those come back to me and say, you know what you said to me, do you remember saying it? Like, I don't remember saying it good, but I know I said it because that's exactly what I say.
Well, I try to one of your things.
Yeah.
So is there something that I love this, Darren, great stuff. Do you have any books or anything you like to read to study kind of that help you get your mindset to?
Sure. I read a lot of Stoicism. I read the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. I read that on a daily basis. And obviously, I read other things that but I listen to a lot of podcasts and I listen to a lot of different things. Some are things that I don't even necessarily agree with, but I'm very much, my brain is very much hear the opposite side of a story so that maybe, because there's only two things that happen. I think a lot of us dodge hearing things that we don't agree with because that thing called cognitive dissonance, which is that feeling in your brain that we've all done it when you just want to shut something off because it's going against what you think. It's a very uncomfortable thing in our
Sure.
brain, and we all do it. And what I've learned is when I start feeling that, I consciously go, no, stop and listen to see what it is. Because really, when you listen to something that's contradictory to what you believe, it does one of two things. Either it says, you know what, there might be really something there. I might really need to reevaluate what I believe
Investigate.
if you want to know the truth. If you just want to be on your side and just want to say but if you really want to know the truth, it could. Or the second thing is it's a bunch of malarkey, and you say it makes me believe what I believe even stronger. So I think that mostly, and podcasts, I can't say any specific podcasts because I listen to a lot of randomness. I do listen to politicians a lot. I think it's a very good thing to us. I listen to Ted Cruz podcast on a regular basis, those kinds of things, because they tell the in depth of what's happening. But I also listen to doctors and things like that because I am a physician.
Yeah,
Um,
to help you grow in those areas. So
yeah,
something either recent or in history, I mean, further back, is what's a big challenge that you've overcome and how were you able to do that?
sure. So I'll tell the story of when I came to the small town in the middle of nowhere, Texas. That was 20 years ago. This summer will be 20 years that I came here. And when I came, um, the hospital was always in the red. The first 4 years, we lost money. There were times they couldn't pay me. I was thinking, there was many times I was like, why am I doing what I'm doing? This isn't going to work. This is not going to work. This place has really struggled. And and at times, I'm not sure why I stayed. I'm sure it's God's plan for me to stay, but I think that it was one of those things more so that I kind of felt sorry for my partner. When I got there, our hospital is a small hospital, only has three physicians. We do everything. We do the emergency room, we do the inpatient service, and we keep pretty sick
You
patients. We do
guys
the
deliver
clinic.
babies,
We
suture,
deliver babies. We do C-sections,
broken
and
arms, and
broken arms,
everything.
and do some minor surgeries and EGDs and colonoscopies and all those things that we can do. And that's the reason I went, was because that's the kind of practice that I wanted. And so I went there for that reason. But we were really struggling. And I had this vision when I got there. I was like, this thing can be really good. It's just not. And at the time, the community was not very supportive. It is a tax district, so they were paying taxes to something that they thought was awful. And at times, it probably wasn't very good. The truth was, it was probably struggling because it wasn't always that good. And so we started really early working and making small decisions. There was never the big decisions, small decisions. And here we are 20 years later. We built a multi-million dollar hospital, less than $2 million clinic. And last year we received top 20 hospital in the nation
Oh,
for
wow.
patient satisfaction. So I went to Kansas City and received an award for this. And you think we had a community that absolutely, most of the community disliked the hospital, not just indifferent, but disliked it. And now
Well,
we're
they
to
had
the
bad
place.
experiences. Yeah.
Yes, and now we're at a much better place. And I think that from this the part that I had in this, I think the vision was mostly mine. I think the leadership was for me, but the work was not all mine. There were a lot of people that did the work. We had good board members. I think one of the best things we did was we had a management company come in who had more knowledge. And for everyone out there that says, what is the most important thing to do is find somebody that knows more about it than you. You know, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm
Yeah.
sure most people have read that book. That was one of his advice, was always find someone who knows more about the subject than you. Pay them. It doesn't matter what it costs. Pay the best person because they will always be worth it.
You
And
don't
so,
ever want to be the smartest person in the room because then you're
no,
not growing. If anything, you're getting drawn down to them. So
sure. And
that,
early on, that's what we learned. We would pay consultants that knew a lot about how to do this. And I realized that after about 2 hours, they told me everything they knew. And it was like, but we're still paying them for months. And I'm like, they aren't really helping us.
Yeah.
So always find the best person, pay them to do it. You're going to get your money's worth. Don't pay the most expensive person, just pay the best person.
Yeah,
So
the best for you. And that's even, if somebody working on your vehicle or something like I want
absolutely.
to pay you for your skill, but let's
Yes.
just, let's get the job that's needed to be done. Great stuff.
Yes.
Well, appreciate you sharing that. So if as you are thinking about as you're moving along in business, do you ever consider, any ways to have ongoing or continuing income, things, different
Sure.
streams of income? Is that something that you look into or?
Sure. I've done some, obviously I've maximized 401ks and do all the things I can do there. A lot of mine though is I've invested in some real estate and some things like that. And I think those are really important things to do. I don't act like I'm some financial guru when it comes to this, but I've made a good living. And so I made a good living because I made myself non-expendable. Everyone
Yes.
it needs me to run, so I make a good living. So I think that making yourself in that position is important. And so again, I'm not acting
Providing a
like,
value. It's providing a value that people or your company can't do without.
yes. And that's what I tell people all the time whenever I tell people who are going into, I'm always talking to the 17, 18, 19-year-old who comes in the clinic and says, you can come in for a cold. I'm still going to say, well, what are you doing? What's your plans? Because we get really, really bad advice when we're that age.
Sure.
The advice has always been, what do you do? Go to college. And they said, but I don't know what I want to do. Yeah, you'll figure it out. That's really, really bad advice. And so, so now I try to advise them what to do. And I tell them, I'm like, and probably one of the things I ask them, I says, let me ask you something. Do you want to be rich or poor? Of course, they all giggle and laugh and say, I want to be rich. I'm like, well, let me tell you the difference. Rich people are employers and poor people are employees. So if you want to be rich, the way you do it, and most everyone that's ever been rich has got this way. They create a business, they grow it, they work hard, and then they sell it.
Yeah.
And that's the process. So and so that I think
kind of
is
starting with the end in mind. Maybe it is to be a plumber or electrician or welder even, but no, you learn the skill, then you go up to being the owner or the
yes.
manager, then owner, then and market it, set it up in a way that it's ready to sell at some point.
Yeah. And despite everything you see on YouTube, the way to get rich, it's always a long, hard grind. It's never quick. It's just
exactly.
And you're not going to do it by the time you're 28 years old. It's going to be a time you're 48 to 58
That's a
years
tiny little slither that can hit
Yes.
that, but you but you need to be prepping for something else. Well, awesome.
Right.
As for wrapping up, our interview here, Darren, what do you have? Any big initiatives or plans in the next 6 to 12 months?
Nothing really big. I'm kind of expanding to another hospital that I'm going to start helping with and doing some things like that, which I think it's time for me to sort of start expanding to help some other places that much like what I've already done. But I think there's some places I'm going to go to another small hospital in West Texas and start doing some time there just to try to help them get where they need to be.
Awesome.
Yes.
Good stuff. Well, Darren, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing with you. If anybody would like to connect with you, is that you have your LinkedIn or?
I have LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't check it that often. Generally, I'm a pretty private person, so I don't really have a lot of things, and I don't get on social media that much. I do have social media. It's just I'm not active on it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Darren.
Thanks for listening to the Flex Forward podcast. If you've got grit, growth, and a great story, visit flexforwardpodcast.com/guest to apply and join us on the show.